Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us again for another edition of Targeted. I'm Kristen Manners, and I'm joined by my co-host V, and I want to welcome everybody again. And today we have with us Guy Potter, and Guy has been a targeted individual for a very long time, and I want to thank you, Guy, for being with us today, and thank you very much for your patience. I know that you've waited quite a while for an interview, and thank you. I do appreciate it. Can you tell us about your situation and tell us a little bit about what has gone on with your targeting situation?
Sure, Kristen. Well, this has been a long time with me. Like I say, I'm not one of these people that it just started with. I mean, it's been going on with me for 35 years. I had an ex-neighbor, his name was Robert J. Alexander, and they moved in the house behind me. And this was years ago, like I say, when I was married and younger, and I didn't know what was going on there. You know, the guy, he was a very stocky Jewish guy and has a family. And the next thing I know, they have like flags on their house and on their car and groups of people on the weekend. And he's acting, really weird behavior. He'll be shouting out the window. And this, I didn't really think so much of it then. But now it appears that they were like infraguard type meetings there at that house. And the thing that's been going on, though, this is where it started from. I mean, I've never met this person or seen this person ever before. His family members I've never seen. So I think they get contracts, the government, whoever, somehow with some sort of assessment on people like me, either through psychiatry or employer or whatever we're suspected of doing. I mean, I think this has a lot of tie-ins with psychiatry myself. Most of the people I have talked with do say they have a psychiatry label at one time or another, and I did also maybe 35, 40 years ago. But that does not justify what they are doing with this, provoking myself, with this voice in the air stalking is what they are doing with me. And I call the voice of God weapon is what these people are using. And like when I'm trying to sleep at night, you can hear them talking. Well, actually, their dream interpretation. I'll be thinking sex, or I'm thinking whatever, and they're right there interpreting. Well, you should do this and do that. You can actually hear their voice in the air as if they were in the same room as me. So I'm not sure how they do this with the device they have. I mean, I suspect it's a type of maser beam, or if it's not a maser beam, I've heard it described as a radar scalar wave aimed at people. And actually, I've seen like blue dots through my eyes before. So this is what I believe they're doing, somehow tied into the Wi-Fi or with this beam weapon, voice of God weapon, as it's called. And they just do this to people throughout the country and throughout the globe. And, you hear in the newspaper every now and then, well, this one shot 10 people or that one committed suicide. And you know, you never hear any official story on voice of God weapon used to drive this person to the mental institute and all that, but it seems to be their objective, to either to drive people to a mental institute, to get them in a state of rage. And, you know, now I'm getting a little older. I just hit my 60s here. And, you know, I'm a little more milder. You know, I just don't get so upset as when I was younger. But, you know, they have driven people to a lot of things. I blame these people with their voice of God weapon for a lot of shootings and other things that have went on in this country. And it's I would say the unexplained thing that's never in the headlines. You know, they'll always go about, the person was bad in this way, you know, drug abuse or whatever. But they won't say they were using this voice of God weapon on that person for decades. And so that's just what I wanted to say, you know, about the people who's doing it. I mean, some people, these people, this Alexander, they're able to convince other people somehow, a very forceful voice, you know, and how he gets other people to cooperate with him is beyond me. But, you know, it's like a third party campaign, you know, saying, well, the person's a child rapist, or he's a pedophile, or he's a homosexual, or whatever I think they use it psychology, and the other person says, well, this person's that bad person, I better harass him. And that's what they do. That's what their mind control thing is all about. And my life has been spent spreading counter slander. Oh, no, I'm okay, and I'm not this and that. And, you know, I've been fortunate to be able to hold a job and work most of the years, but not everybody is with this voice of God weapon. You know, I mean, I've been in a parking lot at night, and it's been shouting loud as if, you know, someone's really shouting at you right next door, and there's not a person in the whole parking lot but me. So, you know, I mean, I think that it should be outlawed. This voice of God weapon should not be used on civilians for any reason. But they failed to acknowledge it. I filed 5 charges with the police while I lived in Nevada, Las Vegas, Nevada. And, you know, so I'm being terrorized by this neighbor and, you know, voice in the air, stalking. And, you know, the police failed to act. The next thing I know, my employer, the Postal Service at the time, it called me into the office and says, well, we want you to go over psych eval and all this crap here. They will not, authority will not acknowledge this device, and they will not acknowledge, you know, so that's what the problem most victims like myself are having. Who do you really go to complain about on this device, you know? And so that's the problem we're having. And I'm looking for different shielding methods now. You know, I think maybe some sort of Mylar or some sort of maybe lead. I don't know what would shield, but they're reading, you know, this beam aimed right through our EEG reading through our eyes. So there's got to be a way to shield it. But anyway, any questions you have, feel free to ask, and I'll answer the best I can.
Well, I will definitely tell you, there is no shielding that's cheap for this sort of thing, which is why they have launched such a weapon. So they wouldn't have an ineffectual weapon that could only harass some and not others. And especially not being in the know. But there are people that are in the know, like yourself, that understand this is scalar, frequency assaults, voice to skull, voice of God weapons, as you said. And I did make a documentary on this, on false flag shooters and whatnot. You'll see that in the corner of the video.
I'd like to see that.
And I always have to go back and ask, what are the beginnings? Why do you think you were targeted to begin with?
Well, the thing that I would say ties in with me and other people is that psychiatric label. You know, I have that myself, but they had me down as a paranoid label. And for some reason, that is an easy victim, because when I go to court, it's not easy for me to testify against, because, well, that can be used against me because I have that psychiatric label. That was the one thing that really stands out on my record. Other than that, when I was 17 or 18, I did get in trouble with the law with pot, with Samara at that time. That was like 40 years ago, and I'm dead against any drugs, legal or illegal. But 40 years ago, those are the two things that I've ever had on my record that stand out, that makes me different than anyone else. So I don't know.
You know, and I do want to mention to you really quick, you know, like V was saying, you know, some of the solutions that people are reaching out to for protection, I understand where you're coming from too. Me personally, I don't particularly think that one thing over another works any better than anything else. I really don't. But I understand where you're coming from as well. It's a very frustrating thing for people.
I'll tell you what. I have come up with a solution, and there's actually no point in me saying what it is because it's very impractical for someone to buy, to have in their homes. It is very expensive material, so I won't exactly talk about it unless I can find a way to make it cheap for everybody to use. But
Yeah, that's the problem is price.
I've busted people like the QA Defender.
Yeah, I remember that
I
product.
have come up with a system that would actually nullify and cancel a person's brain waves being emitted. And I want to talk to them about this sort of thing. And I got all the way up to the highest manager, right underneath the owners. They said they don't want to talk to me. Now, QA Defender is selling these $300, $600 units, tables that emit frequencies to block mind control. And these are shield. This is a shield.
Am I not allowed to ask what this is, or are you not revealing what this is? Is that it, or?
No, QA is well advertised on the internet.
Well, what I'm talking about is magnetic invisibility. Now, anybody can research from that point on and find dead set what I'm talking about. But as far as making it something practical for someone to utilize personally, it's not even something that's manufactured on a mass level yet. So, there are people, and there are people who are made. For example, this Magnus Olson guy. You know, TI's worship this guy, and you know he's selling this device that this pendant that blocks mind control, and it doesn't work. It's $300. You know, there's a lot of these $300, $600, $1,200 pitfalls that TIs fall into, and they end up buying these things. And guess what? They're out that money, and that's just a psyop. Number one, it gets your hopes up. Number two, it drills a big hole in your pocket. And being a target individual, you're not going to have a lot of money to begin with. Number three, once you find out that device doesn't work, you're in more despair. And that's the reason why these companies like QA Defender and this Magnus that are selling these pendants, that's the reason why they're ripping off the TI community.
I think so.
That's further in despair. So I really hope target individuals realize what's going on with that.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I haven't heard any concrete testimony of any of these products that, you know, they say, well, this is concretely working for all. And that's been the problem over the years. I mean, a lot of people have the same voice in the air symptom and all, but they don't know how to stop it. And this has been the problem. I mean, even listening to the radio, like car radio, and getting interested in that seems to keep stalkers away. You know, you don't hear their voice in the air so much because you're interested in the radio show or the music. And that's one thing I do, is just kind of keep myself distracted with listening to the talk shows and things, where I don't have to listen to them and their voice, but I can listen to the talk shows instead. And that's one way I've been surviving this as well. That and good nutrition. Really good nutrition helps a lot.
One of the things I need to ask V, and maybe you can help me out too. This is why I like to have V around, because he's a lot more into the scientific aspect of this than I am. What is it exactly that supposedly on the voice to skull thing, it is, see, I'm trying to get a scientific viewpoint of this, that is supposedly, what is the element, I guess, is my question, that is supposedly harming you when that happens? What are you trying to counteract when this is happening? Do you see what I'm saying?
Well, how to block? It's like that blue light. I mean, I believe it's like a blue light aimed at people, a blue beam through my eyes, and we're just trying to block that from reading my brain waves somehow. So that's why I'm thinking some sort of helmet or some way. Maybe V has a better way of blocking that signal going to the brain and through the eyes, and that's what we're trying. It would be the best solution to this.
That was my question. That's exactly what I needed to know, and that's what I was thinking. Now, what we know, this is my thought here. Because I've thought about this. What would seem to me logical? This is just something I've been thinking about. What would seem logical to me is what do you know about a radio wave or a signal of any sort like that that's coming down? What will stop? What do we know stops a radio wave or a signal of any sort? What stops that? What can stop that?
Well, you need something that can attenuate the signal, the frequency. In other words,
Yes.
absorb it and channel it somewhere else. So like grounding or receiving, just like your radio receives a signal and
Exactly.
it makes sound.
Exactly.
Or you need something called phase cancellation. You have something on a longitudinal frequency, for example, like scalar waves are. You have to have something on the same longitudinal frequency, 180 degrees. It's called signal cancellation, phase cancellation. Now, the part of the things that I want to get into and I want to build work on this aspect. The government doesn't want to tell you, any of the corporations, no university wants to tell you that frequencies are emitted out of your head. But that's what brainwaves are, okay?
Yeah.
The fact is, in order to have privacy, 100% privacy, we have to have 100% control over the frequencies in our environment. That means, having a home in which, you can turn on the radio and not receive a signal. Because we're all being bombarded by frequencies that, we haven't given permission for. I'm being covered by 20 different Wi-Fi networks right now as we speak. Forget the radio and television companies. Now, the thing about this synthetic telepathy is B2K. Well, actually, it's just the synthetic telepathy. It piggybacks these signals. This is why they want us all to have Wi-Fi. That's why it's free Wi-Fi everywhere you go. Because it piggybacks these frequencies.
I guess that's my point. What if you had something that was very small that was on your person that was doing the exact opposite? Do you see what I'm saying? That was...
The only way for that to happen is, again, phase cancellation. And the only way to do that as a person emits several different frequencies off at one time, because each thought you had, for every word you speak, is a different signal. Okay, now, with that said, you're talking modulation. You'd have to map your own brain to find out the signal for every word, for every thought, find out that signal, and program a reverse signal to cancel it out so it can't be picked up. Now, this is possible, brain mapping, that has been done by the government. The government has chemtrailed us all, but the nano particulates in our brains, from which we all breathe, they hit us with a frequency, and it goes back like radar, like Doppler. They get a picture of our brain every second. Boom, 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 boom. Every time we're having a thought. In between thoughts. It's going back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah.
They're getting a picture of our brains. And this is how they're brain mapping us right now. And so they know after they've done brain mapping, they can sit an AI computer on you by frequency and talk to you as your entire neural network in your skull that's mapped out. This lights up over here. You think dog? It knows it. It's going to say, why are you thinking about a dog? You know, screw you. We're going to kill your dog. Okay, this is how this works. I don't want to be funny about it. That's exactly.
No, I feel what you're saying, but I'm thinking of it more on a more simplistic level because it's ultimately about a signal.
Yes.
So, you know, yeah, I think going that far, I think you stop the signal that which is where it starts. That's my thought.
You're talking scalar, which goes through everything.
Well, Guy, I wanted to ask you too. Do you think this has gotten worse or better over the years for you? I mean,
well, now that I've hit my 60s, it's actually a little better, you know, because I think when I was younger, I had a lot more testosterone, and someone say something to me, I'm more prone to, you know, get into the verbal altercation and things. Now, if someone says something, I just look at them and I don't get too upset. And, you know, and I know where it's coming from. I mean, you know, years ago when this was going on, I thought, you know, everyone in the world hated me. And, you know, I didn't know if it was a racial problem or what it was. And, you know, you really get a lot of different thoughts going through your mind as to why people are taunting at you and acting nuts. And then when you find out that there's some infrared Jewish person with this laser beam device aimed at you and telling these people to act this way, then it you know, it just explained a lot. And, you know, I just don't pay as much attention to it these days.
are you still in the same neighborhood with this individual, or have you?
No. I'm in Arizona now. I used to live in Nevada and California before this, but yeah, I'm definitely 3 states away. But even being 3 states away, it's still going on to this day. I don't know. Like I say, it appears
Same individuals.
Same individuals. I hear that it's not only the same one individual. I hear different family members talk at a time. I guess he has relatives over and son. I can hear their voice, and it's like the whole family is in on it. You know, it's like they leave the loudspeaker open to this device, and they can all get their saying whenever. You know, now I don't know how many of them are being paid. That's one other thing I didn't mention is that at the time I did, you know, I did own some rental property, and I did check on this. Where's this person getting the money from? You know, and all of a sudden I see a government check every 2 weeks in this person's bank account for around $1,000, and so I'm saying that must be a check for the InfraGard members to do this every couple of weeks. It's not a lot of money to ruin someone's life for a few $1,000s a month, but apparently that's what's going on. Now, I don't know if everyone in that family gets that same check, but that's the only check that I saw for the whole family at that time. But unless there's other bank accounts I don't know about, but well, they are being government paid.
That's fascinating in its own right. Well,
Yeah.
is, you know, Guy, I know that you said you only had an hour. Is there anything else you'd like us to know before we close the interview? Again, I want to thank you for your patience.
Yeah, well, the only thing I would say also is, you know, a lot of the people that seem to be credible, and I don't want to mention names and all, but I'm a little leery because most of this people talk, well, it's all voice in your head and you're the only one hearing this, but really that's not it. When people are walking down the street, sticking their tongue out, they're hearing what the stalker is saying. They're hearing this voice of God weapon, but it's been a big cover-up saying, oh, well, the victim is just the only one who hears it in his head. It's not like that. It's like everyone hears it, and they're very covert about it. So I just wanted to run that in there that, it's
No,
not one of these.
I understand completely what you're saying on that end. Trust me. I get that completely. Believe me, they're very slick about all this stuff. So I get that 100%, and you're exactly right. And I am so glad that you made that point. Thank you very much for bringing that up. And I do want to thank you, God, very much for your patience again and for being on Targeted. Thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, I do appreciate it. I do really hope that V does get something going on this, like reverse device. I'd be one of the first to want to try it. And like I say, that sounds like something that may actually work because, of the things out there, the pendants and the stuff, it really, I think it's more of a distraction than anything. But something would actually reverse the wave or block it somehow. They actually work. So I've heard that they say that type of thing, reverse scalar wave, EEG scalar wave thing may work. So I'm having my hopes up, and I wouldn't mind being a test subject on that device if it would ever gets off the ground.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you again, Guy, and thank you for joining us. And this has been another edition of Targeted.